It is time for another asset review. Let's look at Grabbit. Having your scenes look natural in your game is one of the bigger challenges, and especially as an indie developer, this can take up a lot of time moving things around manually and creating some sort of randomness. It is not as easy as it sounds, and that's the way a tool like Grabbit comes into play. Now, at $40, is a tool like this worth it? Is it going to save you enough time to justify the cost? And does it do what it says it does? Only one way to find out. Let's jump into it. To help with my testing, I am using Circus props as shown here on the asset store. It is $10 and has a nice variety of meshes, so this will be awesome for testing Grabbit with. Grabbit gets installed into the assets plugins directory. And there's a PDF document to get you started over here, which is actually sufficient for this tool. There's not a whole lot of functionality built in here, so let's have a look how this works quickly. I've set up a simple scene with some of Unity's primitives. There's a sphere, some cubes, and then some of the circus props I've brought in. So let's see how this works. I'm going to grab one of these little cubes over here. Actually, let's grab a barrel, it's more visible. How does this work? So I'm using Unity's standard transform tool, but Grabbit provides its own transform tools. It's accessible via UIOP or the first square bracket. Get opening square bracket. Let's try out place. So if I can hit U on the keyboard, it brings this up if it's not open already. And you'll see place is selected. There's a bunch of options over here, but I'm just going to show you the basics. So using place, I can move this object around and place it on there. And now this is not going to go through. And something I want to mention is any objects that you bring into Grabbit, you do not have to actually add a collider on yourself. You don't have to add a collider or a rigid body. Grabbit will do that for you in edit mode. Of course, if you need it to still have a collider or rigid body in play mode, then you need to add that yourself. Okay, so obviously it generates its temporary colliders for use in edit mode so that you can go and place these things all over the place. And what you can do is, so Grabbit basically gives your scene physics in edit mode. So I can take this barrel over here and move it down, and you can see as it collides with something, it gets knocked over the place, right? So that's being affected by physics. The same thing with rotate. So let me just put this down. Actually, this is why I brought you over here, this plank. Okay, so you can see if I start rotating this plank, and that is using the rotate tool of Grabbit. If I just use Unity's standard rotate tool, which is this, it's going to go through that sphere, okay? Now if I use Grabbit's rotate, it does not go through there at all. So it's so easy to go and align your stuff nicely. But you can see there, it can get a bit finicky at times in terms of, you know, as you're moving it around and it collides with something, it can sometimes just go all over the place, your object. So you have to be a bit gentle with it, I guess. Let's see, rotate, align. This is for multiple objects. So let's grab these skittles over here. And you'll see the align tool looks like the scaling tool. So what can I do here? These objects are all in a line, so I can grab this and spread them out. Okay, I don't have it in the best position, that's why it's not collided with the barrel over there and gets knocked over. But you can see what that does. Starting from the middle, that kind of tries to align things, but yeah, I need to play around with this a bit more because I'm not getting the proper use of this, I guess. Now the main tool that you want to use is probably going to be this fall tool. So let's grab these skittles again. Another thing I need to mention is that the undo functionality does not seem to work all the time. So I'm going to try to undo the skittles. Okay, it worked this time, but I have had issues with the undo functionality. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to move this over the ball. move it up. So that is now over the ball. And I'm going to just drop it. And this is an excellent tool for placing your objects in your scene so that they look like they've just been left around randomly, or they've just fallen over randomly or something like that. So I'm going to select fall, and there's multiple ways to do this. You can hit resume Grabbit, which I do not suggest you do because your scene can end up in a complete mess. If, for example, let me just do this. I'm going to deselect everything. If I hit resume Grabbit and by mistake say I click on this ground, you see what happens? It's trying to fall. It's being stopped by some of the colliders, I believe, but yeah. Do not use this resume unless you really know what you're doing and you've played around with Grabbit quite a bit. Before I carry on, there's something I really need to mention, and before I forget. So your scenes, like I mentioned, you can end up in a position where you've accidentally hit something or something's moved, and for example, these skittles can fall through the floor if you bring in some new objects and they haven't been calculated yet. In other words, the temporary colliders have not been calculated yet. Your objects can fall through the floor and your scene can just end up in a real mess. So what I've done, and I suggest you do if you get started with this, is just make a backup of your scene. You can see I've made a few backups as I've gone ahead and started creating all these objects and moved them around so that I don't have to start over and over and over again, because that is quite frustrating. So I'm going to select these again, and instead of hitting resume, you can hit space to simulate the falling. So you have to, okay, so have a look at this. I'm going to hit space and let go. See, it starts falling. As soon as I let go, it stops. So you have to hold it down, and that's when the simulation happens. Okay, I'm going to select this. There we go, and it's fallen over. This is in the way. So I'm going to move you out of the way, select that skittles again. And hit my shortcut key. And you see that falls. As soon as I let go, it's going to stop simulating. So an object can be on that ball still, and I can let go and it will just be placed there. Okay, the last one I want to show you is point, and this is a nice one. This is actually still in experimental mode, says user caution, and I struggle to figure out what this does. So you have to select something and hold space down to get it to follow your cursor around. And this is very, very, very useful. And I think it's become my favorite tool here in this asset. And yeah, it's just so easy to move things around just by moving your mouse around. You have to hold space down and move your mouse around. So, okay, I'm gonna stop there. There's not much more to say about this tool. It's useful placement and it's easy enough to use, but you can get in trouble. There are a few glitches which I'm sure the developers will sort out at some point. All in all, a very good tool. I'm quite happy with it, and I do foresee that I will be using it quite a bit in future. Just be careful, it is a bit pricey, so make sure you know what this tool does. I pretty much covered everything that it can do, so keep that in mind. Anyway guys, until next time, enjoy.